So recently I did a preset where I was trying to recreate the effect from the Andy Timmons Halo pedal using the quad Cortex built-in effects. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll link to it here. But this is where we ended up with this setup here, and it ended up sounding like this. So overall, I was pretty happy with it, and it got me thinking. A while back, I'd done a preset that was kind of an overall Andy Timmons rig. And at the time, I tried to build in a Halo type effect into that with some dual delays and a reverb. And I wanted to try to retrofit that new Halo setup into this old preset. On the surface, that seems pretty straightforward, but there's two issues we're going to have. One is just overall CPU usage and block space in the preset. As you can see, this preset for Andy Timmons has a lot of blocks. So I think we're going to need to pare that down a little bit. The other piece is the ability to split the processing as many times as these presets do. So you can see this Andy Timmons preset, I'm running a dual amp setup with 2 Lone Stars, which I think really helps make the preset sound full. But if you look at what we had to do for the Halo preset, we had to run a wet-dry setup. And then I'm also running a parallel delay. And so if you add those up, that would be 3 parallel splits in one preset, and you can only do 2. So we're going to have to figure that out, and we're going to have to make some compromises. But let's go back to our Andy Timmons preset. And so let's start off by looking at this preset that I'd done a while back. There's a few things here that I think we can get rid of off the bat. The first is this low-high cut. When I created this preset, it was before Neural DSP added the ability to do low-high cuts in the cab blocks. And so since we have that, we don't need this block anymore. So let's get rid of that. The other thing is, on this preset, I had done 2 flavors of leads. One was using a neural capture of a JHS at pedal. The other was using the Brit Governor overdrive pedal in the quad Cortex. So I'm going to stick with using this overdrive pedal and get rid of this capture. That means we will go ahead and get rid of that scene. All right, so we've saved a few blocks here. For now, I'm going to get rid of this dual chorus. We'll add in maybe a chorus later, but for now, let's get rid of it just to have that space available to us. Because what we're going to need to do is get these amps up onto this first row. The other thing I think we can do is I'm going to get rid of the BB drive. I think if we just have the RC drive and the blues driver, that's going to hit the majority of the tones we're going to want to do for Andy Timmons. So let's go ahead and get rid of the BB drive. And we'll move all of these over here. We've got this adaptive gate. I'd like to get rid of it. Unfortunately, the blues driver in this preset can get kind of noisy. And so I found that I needed to have this gate there. And so now I think we've got enough space to move our amps up. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to put this compressor after up on that line as well. And then what we'll need to do is we're going to need to insert our split. So there, we now have our amps up on the first and second rows. And we've got our compressor up here too. If you're not familiar with what this compressor is doing, I'm using this to mimic some of the sag the amp might have so that I can push it with pedals in the front and then use the volume on the guitar to back off. If you're interested in that topic, I did a video on it. I'll link to it here. All right, so now what we need to do is just get rid of these effects, and we're going to need to go over and pull in the Halo setup from the other preset. So let's go do that. So I've moved over all the blocks for the Halo effect. So one of the things you can hear is that the preset has a very high level of effect. That's because the Halo setup that I brought over was set up to be a wet path only. And so we're at a point where we need to make a decision now. We can't have a wet, dry path and parallel amps. So we're going to need to decide which one we want, which one we don't want. And I think we need to do the wet, dry path because one of the keys to the Halo effect is this upfront compressor that's kind of smoothing the attack. And if you don't have this, you lose some of the way that effect sounds, that kind of swelling effect. It gets a little too, it'll mimic the attack too much. So we're going to need to not have parallel amps up here, and this split is going to need to run into a wet path. But one of the things we could do is we could use this amp and cab as a wet amp and cab. So still get a little bit of a dual amp thing going on, not quite as pronounced, but it might work. So let's go ahead, and this needs to go to multi-outs now because that's our dry path. This is going to go to row 3. And then we're going to have this amp and this cab kind of be the amps on our wet path. That means what we need to do is put the split before the amp there. So let's go ahead and hear what that sounds like. So one of the things you'll notice here is we're getting a kind of a drop in overall volume of the preset. When you're splitting this much, that can happen. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to set the multi-out to be a little louder. All right, the other thing is we can add our chorus back in. So let's go ahead and do that. And one of the things we'll have to do is we're going to up the mix on this chorus because we're on a wet path. If you want to hear it, the mix needs to be high. So let's hear our RC boost. Well, that works pretty well. I think I'm going to give a little more treble to this affected path. I think that works better. All right, let's try our blues driver. And let's try our lead tone. I think it works. Let's compare it to kind of the pure Halo tone from the other one. So here's the Halo patch. I might need a little more gain on this. All right, I think I have the levels balanced. All right, so I think we have successfully integrated the new Halo effect into the Andy Timmons patch, at least as well as we can. So as always, I'll make this preset available on my Cortex Cloud account, and feel free to grab it, play around with it, let me know what you think. And as always, thanks for watching.